Hi, everyone. You are listening to Radio Cherry Bombe, and I'm your host, Kerry Diamond, coming to you from Newsstand Studios at Rockefeller Center in the heart of New York City. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, food and fashion. And our guests are Dillon and Somsack Sikhounmuong of the brand Alex Mill. Some of you might have heard me talk about this, but Alex Mill opened a shop right across from our studio, and I am literally looking into their store as I read this. I've always felt a lot of kinship with the Alex Mill team as they left the corporate world to build something very special and intentional, much like we did with Cherry Bombe. We've done some fun events with them over the years and a great jacket collab. I bet some of you remember that and maybe even own the jacket. Anyway, Allie is the president of Alex Mill and Somsack is the creative director. We talk about their food lives, what lunch culture is like at the Alex Mill office, what all of us entrepreneurs can learn from their approach to merchandising, meaning how they display things, and lots more. I've known Somsack for a long time, and I loved getting to know him better. And it was wonderful meeting Allie for the first time. Stay tuned for our chat. You regular listeners know I love Las Vegas. In fact, I just got back from Vegas a few days ago. I love the energy, I love the restaurants, I love the sphere, but mostly I love the people. There's so many incredibly talented women making magic happen on the Las Vegas culinary scene. Chefs, restaurateurs, mixologists, pastry chefs, many of whom we celebrated on this show last year during a special Las Vegas miniseries. Well, good news. Our next Vegas miniseries launches later this month with a whole new lineup of superstars and rising stars. Also, the Cherry Bombe team and I will be in Las Vegas to host some special events for International Women's Day on Friday, March 7th and Saturday, March 8th. If you've always wanted to go to Vegas, roll the dice and come hang with us. Stay tuned for tickets and more information. We've got a lot going on at Cherry Bombe, and the best way to stay informed is to sign up for our free newsletter. You can sign up at cherrybombe.com or at the link in our show notes. Learn about any podcast guests you might have missed, our upcoming events, early bird ticket info, pop-ups, and cool food news. We send our main email every Friday. Now, let's hear from today's guests. Allie and Somsack, welcome to Radio Cherry Bombe.
Hi.
Thank you. Let's start with some food questions so the audience can get to know you. What is your favorite restaurant in New York City? Who wants to start?
I can go first. I was thinking about this because how do you choose? I have to say, first thing that comes to my mind is Colony, which is actually in Brooklyn Heights. It's more personal. My husband and I went there when we were dating, and then the night we got engaged, and all of those things. I love it there. You can sit at the chef's counter, and I just love actually watching that experience of them creating the food and that whole process. And it's always so yummy, too. So it's a bonus.
Yeah, mine would probably be King. I just love the space. I just love how small that menu is. It's just 5 things, and you just have to pick from the 5 things. And the food and the quality of the food is just so great. And it's so just intimate and just nice to be there.
Cozy vibes.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you do for lunch most work days?
So I'm a creature of habit. I feel like we're lucky where we are in Soho. There's, a ton of different options of what we can get for lunch, but I wind up going to the same places. In our office, it's a huge food culture in our office. So Sam could probably speak better because half of the new options that I have for lunch, I've only learned by just watching him.
Yeah.
And drooling or wanting, or actually him saying, have a bite, have a piece. I ordered 4 extra things for you to try.
It's almost like, what don't we do for lunch? Every day is just something different. We have a communal table where everyone at lunchtime more or less just brings out whether they make their own food or whether we order food. We all order together and we just eat together. We've likened it to Alex Meals because every day it's just a big exercise in just eating. It's just shared foods. We're always sharing.
Do you have any faves in the neighborhood? I mean, you even have an Eataly.
We have an Eataly that Mickey will run down and get sandwiches. We've ordered a lot of, almost distance doesn't even matter because we've ordered from Koreatown. We've ordered from Tribeca. We've ordered probably by 11 o'clock. It's what does everyone want to eat? Pasta, Korean, pizza. We've got Popeyes.
Popeyes down on Canal Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Carvel. We've gotten Carvel cakes. We've gotten more than once. Yeah, more than once. It's very random.
Do you go out to eat for lunch much?
I haven't been out for lunch in probably 5 years.
I think I went out to lunch the first day I started at Alex Mill. Me and Mickey went out to lunch, and that's been it. And that's just because of how much, we're doing all the time and how quick it all happened. Yeah, I think, what Sam mentioned, there is a really incredible sense of community around eating and conversation. So actually people like being in the office too for lunch.
Does anyone make their own lunch?
A lot of people make their own lunch.
You don't?
I don't. I'll bring a little meal and they're like, oh, is that lunch? I was like, no, it's just a supplement to what I'm about to order because I love eating. And so I'll make like something really quick, like fried rice or something like that, or leftovers I'll bring. But I don't make a proper lunch per se.
Sam's also has multiple lunches, I would say,
Yes.
or his lunchtime varies. So sometimes we'll be in a meeting, it'll be 3:30. I'm like, what's that? It's like, oh, it's lunch. I'm
Shake
like, right.
Shack.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say the delivery crew around New York City knows the office quite well.
You're
from the
keeping
amount.
Uber Eats and all those folks in
100%.
business. Yeah. And I know Mickey likes to go out to eat. He's got his table at San Ambrose.
His cafeteria.
Mhm.
That's
we call
right.
it,
Yeah,
Across the
satellite
street.
office.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to talk about Mickey a lot. Mickey
Yeah.
is Mickey Drexler. He's the chairman of Alex Mill. And you both worked with him in previous
Yeah.
lives when he was the CEO of
Yeah.
J. Crew. Okay, so who is this person named Eugen who makes chocolate chip cookies for everybody in the office?
So Eugen is our head of women's production, more or less. She is one of the people that makes lunch, but she also bakes. And so she's brought in like cakes, she's brought in like
Breads. she's brought
breads
in
and stuff like that.
cookies.
And one day she brought in these cookies, and Mickey loves cookies. Yes. he
And when
loves-
when Mickey says
Yeah.
something is his favorite, that is high, sought after award. So yeah, he had these cookies recently and it was just like, I've never had a better cookie in my life. And then inevitably what happens is the cookie becomes a meeting about how to merchandise and how to think and how to operate and the best of everything and the time and the intent. For us, a cookie can literally turn into an entire, sales plan ultimately. But Eugen was the source of inspiration for sure.
Well, I want to know whose chocolate chip cookie recipe she has. So, Eugen, if you're listening to this, you'll have to DM me or get the info
Often
to
with
me.
Eugen, we'll say, like, this is amazing. And she's kind of like, I didn't even really have a recipe.
Yeah, she
Which
plays
is
around.
probably the sign of a good
Yeah.
baker. She just remembers something, she includes something else, and then she can't really share it again. But we will see if she can work on that one since it was the best.
I know you two go to bookstores a lot. I'm just guessing this about you based on everything I know about Alex Mill. But there's a really pretty pink baking book out right now called Sift.
Mm.
It's like
Okay.
pink and it has white. It looks like kind of confectioner's sugar on the cover. And the author is a lovely British woman named Nicola Lamb. And she used to be the office cake lady.
Oh my
And she said every office has the person who bakes for the office.
100%. I even think we had that at J. Crew. I mean, I think back to
Every department has
yeah,
someone
every
had one,
department had somebody who was always bringing in sweets and treats. And again, that just creates this kind of like fun culture vibe, gather round, and gives a nice relief when things aren't as happy as a chocolate chip cookie is.
There's so much intersection between the food and fashion worlds these days. Once upon a time, the two worlds did not mix. Some, you know that.
Yeah.
Today, there's food imagery in so many collections and campaigns. Brands are opening restaurants and cafes and coffee shops. Major brands are collaborating with chefs and culinary creatives. Why this connection and crossover today? What's behind this?
I mean, for me, I think it probably was always kind of pervasive, but more so than ever in this post-COVID world that we're all living in, where people just love experiences. And they love to have this, we're deprived of all that kind of sensory interaction for so long. They love to be shopping with their favorite drink or their favorite snack or just kind of getting to know it all. And I know for us, we're constantly thinking about that. So a lot of the people that we feature are some of the restaurants we admire or the creators that we love to work with. And I think that's because we really want to be this intersection of all things creative. Food and fashion feel like such tangible things that everyone, deals with every single day in their life, right? They have to eat and they have to get dressed. Those are kind of two universal truths. So being able to combine them is just really fun, especially when you weren't able to for that time period.
Yeah, and I think social media probably has a huge thing to do and unlock where everyone's ivory towers were sort of like shattered. When you could preview from the comfort of your couch just what a chef was wearing or what a designer was eating. I'm a designer that eats, and I know there are chefs that probably need clothes. And so it just makes sense. I think even like a few years ago, Kelsey, who's Mickey's assistant in the office, she was on YouTube just watching Claire Savitz. And she saw that she was wearing a lot of Alex Mill stuff. And so it was just a natural, I think an email or a phone call, or maybe even a DM to Claire and, just talking to her. And then we started a partnership. We did a collab on an apron. It just seems like it was about time, more or less.
We'll be right back with today's guests. The new issue of Cherry Bombe's print magazine is almost here. It's our love issue, and it features the Marr sisters on the cover. Olympics rugby star Ilona Marr, you all know and love her, the founder of Girl Dinner, Livy Marr, and humanitarian and youngest sister, Adriana Marr. As always, our print magazine features terrific stories, photos, and recipes from your favorite culinary creatives. You can order a copy at cherrybombe.com or check out the stockist list on our website for the bookstores, magazine stores, and culinary shops that carry Cherry Bombe, and you can support a small business near you. All right, Somsack, where do fashion designers hang out today? Remember, you could go to Balthazar for breakfast and see everybody in the industry. Where do you bump into your peers today?
I'm probably the worst person to ask because I don't ever really leave the house that often.
Are you a homebody?
I am. I think just after being out all day and just talking to millions of people at the office or making decisions everywhere, all I want to do is just go home and not see anyone, but just have a little time off. But I mean, honestly, I think when I was doing SoulCycle maybe a year ago, I would see a lot of fashion people sitting next to me in SoulCycle.
That's not a restaurant.
Yeah, it's not a restaurant. We were all in the dark, which I think helped because no one really wanted to see each other. We were just sitting in the dark, getting our sweat on, and then we would leave and then be like, oh gosh, yeah, this person was here or that person was here.
I don't think he chose it, but for this reason, but I'd say Mickey's usually on to things like this. And I do think we hear a lot of people, or if you're walking by, since our office is across the street from St. Ambrose, there's a lot of people hanging out at St. Ambrose that you couldn't have be seen there or just, cultivating there. He'll come back and he'll typically say he ran into so-and-so or he saw so-and-so.
Or bring someone up with him.
Yes.
Yes, drag them up.
Yes, come right up to the office and then we have, a new meeting.
Allie, is there any such thing as the power breakfast anymore?
Maybe there is.
You're
Maybe I'm
CEO.
not powerful enough to have the power breakfast. I do think more and more I'm connecting with people who are like, let's meet for a coffee, let's meet for breakfast. Just getting back into that rhythm. For so long, we're in the office, but a lot of people also weren't in the city. They weren't coming to the city. So that wasn't as easy, but now it is when you're there every day. You can just kind of make that connection. I think you get so much out of that in-person connection than you do even just having a phone call with that same person. I'm always open. Anyone, if they want to have breakfast with me, I'm happy to. We'll talk about Mickey, but one of the biggest things he's taught me is to be curious. Always take the call, always take the meeting, always learn something, even if it's not applicable in the moment. Anything that you can do. And again, an over-enjoyable meal is all the better to say, I had a great breakfast. Or if you didn't even enjoy the conversation, at least you still enjoyed the food.
Mm-hmm. I forgot to mention this when I said who Mickey was, but Mickey's an industry legend. Everyone in the industry knows about Mickey, and he's had a remarkable career. I think we're all lucky today that he is very good about sharing his knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I wanted to say one of the reasons I wanted you both on the podcast was because you are literally our new next door neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, I can sit here and all three of us are looking right into the side window of your store. And you didn't even realize how close the studio was.
We didn't, which is embarrassing because I've been to this store hundreds of times at this point and we've only been open for 3 months.
Right. Because no one expects there to be a podcast studio literally in the lobby of
I
One
think,
Rock.
To be fair, I think I constantly have my eyes diverted at the store. I'm never looking, left or right. But yeah, we are looking into our store right now and trying to see who's working and say hi if we can. But I have a lot of ideas, even just sitting here watching the store.
You know what? I've been thinking too. I'm like, oh, maybe some of the clothes need to face this way.
100%.
Because the traffic in here is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you get just all the people walking through and at lunchtime and all the tour groups that come through. Anyway, of all the places you could have opened in New York City, why Rockefeller Center?
I mean, the Rock team actually approached us. They're doing so much here. We kind of thought, why not, right? It's the center of it all. That's their slogan. And we took a visit here and we totally agree. There's so much happening here and not just, the traditional sense of just coming to see the tree lighting. They just have these incredible events, incredible restaurants that are here. I think we were only supported when Sam said, oh yeah, I went to dinner there recently, So we really liked that idea. And like I said, they're bringing so many interesting brands in. We feel like, especially being in Rock Center, there's not as many stores who are doing what we do, which is creating a really easy, focused, shopping experience, incredible quality clothes. And so when we looked around, we were like, we're a differentiator here. And we always want to be somewhere where we can be, valuable to that space and valuable to that customer. And so we were excited. And, we turned it around pretty quickly. I think we started the conversations with them in the middle of last year, and we were open, right before the holiday season.
You're laughing. Why are you laughing?
Yeah, we have a habit of opening things really fast. And I think we do a good job with it. I think Rock Center, just the audience it offers us, how international, I think, and tourists and also just people who live in New York. But in addition to that, just the clientele we get from all over the world.
But we're still small. Mm-hmm. And so that brand awareness level, for us, we were thinking of this store as like a billboard. There's so much traffic that comes through the center. And we get a sales report every single day from our store teams. And 90% of their customers, and they had a great day yesterday, were tourists. So it's just a great way for us to kind of spread our roots a little bit more.
And you said something about moving fast and making decisions quick.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the benefits of being a small company.
Yes, 100%. I always tell people when they ask what my favorite part of the job is, I mean, I always think it's the best part and also the hardest part is the size. The number of decisions we can get made in an hour versus our old companies when there was just so many layers, so much better and so much quicker. And I think even the decisions are weighted a little differently too. It's like it's not the end of the world when we're about this size, so we can take more chances.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been so great.
100%.
Yeah.
And Sam is mentioning, because this was technically like took us forever to open this store, because we had a store this past summer in East Hampton where Mickey saw the space on July 3rd and we were operational by July 19th.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
He called us. He was there on the weekend. Monday, he said, we have a space. Let's open this store.
Yeah. It was July 3rd. He's like, let's talk about tomorrow. I was like, tomorrow's 4th of July, but we can talk about it. I think it was Friday was the 5th this past year. And then we were up and running, build out fixtures, team, all of the things that go into a store, which truly does typically take months and months of planning. But we were operational in 2.5 weeks. It wound up being an amazing store for us this past summer. So we're so happy we did it. But yeah, that's it. Cramming all that into 2 weeks is a lot.
Wow. Oh, that store must have been a blast, though.
It was.
Yeah.
Last summer, yeah. I want to talk about merchandising, and merchandising, meaning how you display your product, is such an important part of what you do. I'm curious what some of the brand codes are when it comes to merchandising, because I know a lot of our listeners have food businesses or shops, and they can learn something from how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've both worked with Mickey for over 20 years. And so the thing I often tell people about Mickey is there's a ton of consistency in his themes. And I think you'll even see that in the formula. I think we're doing it the best it's ever been done at Alex Mill. It's really about focus, simplicity, emotion, customer service. We want to be an edited destination. We don't want an endless aisle of choice of this or that. It's really about making the best, using the best materials, putting the best details, and having that be really easy for the customer. There's always different elements that I think we pull in, but to me, creating a really simple, emotional, incredible, focused experience for the customer is probably top of my list.
Yeah. We always talk about restaurant related too. Mickey's always like the daily specials. When you walk into a restaurant, these are the specials you have. This is what we're known for. This is what we do well. That can easily translate into a store. Let's not overwhelm the customer. Let's tell the customer why they're here, what they need. And emotion is always a big thing. Color. We always talk about color. When you walk into the door, what do you want the customer to feel, and how are you going to sort of like snatch them or engage them? And I think oftentimes it's color.
Color is so key to what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can't appreciate the quality of what we're doing if you're doing it in mass, right? Because one, it's just really hard to execute. And two, you're just not able to touch and feel and see from a customer side. So I think, there's just so many little elements that we're able to better execute when we're focused.
Alex Mill started as a small fashion brand and a men's brand, trying to make the perfect shirt. How would you describe the brand today? What is Alex Mill in 2025?
I would say it's probably exactly the same, but sort of like we've added women's. When we first started, Alex had a tiny store in Nolita, and it was just men's, and women would walk into the store and they'd always be asking for women's stuff, and we didn't have it, but women's would still buy it. And I remember he would tell us this funny story where Goop was one of the first wholesale accounts that we used to have, and they would just buy the men's stuff to sell to women. And so it's more or less like sort of that same attitude or that formula that men have had the luxury of using for years and years and years. It doesn't have to be that complicated to get dressed, and it's not about making more clothes, but the right clothes. Why shouldn't women also partake in that sort of formula,
Is it Alex Mill for Millard, Mickey's actual name? Or are you trying to imply like a fabric mill?
It's a fabric mill, yeah.
So totally coincidental.
We've gotten that question before, totally coincidental, just sort of the quality and sort of like the handmade nature that goes into a mill, so Alex Mill.
Yeah, and I think probably just for anyone who isn't as close to the brand as we are, Alex is Mickey's son, but also is the founder of the brand. I've only been with the brand for a year. I worked for Mickey, for almost 15 years at J. Crew. But when I first heard the name, I was like, oh, that's so funny. And most people don't know that Mickey's real name is Millard, so they won't get it. It's tongue-in-cheek. And they were like, no, it's for a mill.
So many fashion brands are obsessed with scaling. They have to be big. They have to have hundreds of stores, a huge assortment of product. As you kind of mentioned when you talked about merchandising, Alex Mill is the opposite of that. Why have you taken this stance?
Some said we do a lot of, we'll make quick decisions, things that we're excited about, but also so much is done with so much intention. And it's near impossible to keep things intentional and keep things right if you're scaling really large. It becomes unfocused. I think we know we have a lot of opportunity to scale, but it's not our obsession. Our obsession is continuing to deliver what feels like the best product, the best experience, the best brand, and staying really true to that. So we're growing, and we're really, really happy and excited about our growth, but we're not doing it to get from here to the moon as quickly as we can. We want to do it that feels like it's right and kind of stage growth. And I think, unfortunately, what you are seeing is a lot of these brands that did scale and then have that unfortunate reality of having to pull back. And so we definitely don't want to do that either. We don't want to be closing stores and having to pull back from the intentions that we set.
I think it's like a gut approach to it too. I think every day we talk about this and it's like almost thinking big but acting small. I think there was one conversation where we didn't even want to call the stores but shops. There's just like a smallness connotation to a shop and just sort of behaving like a shop, making everything very customer centric, being very hands-on with everything we do, writing handwritten letters to customers, just that kind of attitude, I think. I mean, how big can we get while still doing it? I think we're going to try our hardest to sort of like maintain that quality.
Because you two have worked at very big companies. You both worked at J.Crew for a long time. Did you want to work somewhere with a different ethos?
Yes.
100%. I was at J.Crew with Mickey and Son, and then I was at Gap. Obviously, Mickey has a long storied history with Gap. You realize, and this is really about what we both wanted and what the brand is doing, just again, how much more you can do and how much more thoughtful you can be, the smaller you are. And then the ability to grow but still preserve that. And it's, working at some of those brands, lovingly I say this, but it's like trying to turn a cruise ship around in a port sometimes. It's really hard because of the layers and the complexity and all the things that go into it. We're able to do things much nimbler that feel like, okay, we're starting from the bottom up, with a small team. And everyone at Alex Mill wears multiple hats. I don't think you'll find a single person who does one specific role or job. Kind of that web that has been created of people doing all these different things and working together. Again, you're not going to find a lot of subject matter experts at big companies, and here what you're finding is really talented people who work really well together to create a brand.
Some, your answer was sort of like, hell yes.
Yes.
Were you done with
big
brands?
I think I could, Allie also, and I think probably Mickey to a certain point. It's just like we've been doing it for so long. I think when I was at my old company, I hadn't sketched a sketch in so long, and that's my first love, and I just know that's what I love doing. And I'm sure Allie sort of like being able to touch a garment and merchandise it with your hands, and Mickey the same way. And now we can. I think that this scale has allowed me to sort of sketch and do everything else, and Allie to actually try on a garment and then say yes or no, or Mickey being in a color meeting and picking a color with us.
Yeah.
We just haven't been able to do that in so long, and it's been so, so nice.
Yeah, 100%. And Mickey would say 60 years into this career, he feels like he's able to do more now than he's ever done before. And that's because everything's being made, all the decisions are being made together in that room quickly. And we're talking about things so quick. And, we open a store in 2 weeks, or we chase after an idea. Everything's just very, very quick of putting our heads together. The entire team there is amazing, but our marketing team is also incredible at being able to kind of be so reactive. And I think that's one of the things, even externally, before I joined the team, that you'd hear so much admiration for. Like, wow, how does your marketing team create this sense of intimacy with the team? How do they do it, right? Once you're on the inside, you see it's just because that's life. And it's all just coming out as a projection. But there's so much magic in that authenticity.
Sam, it's so interesting when you think of designers, you think they're always sketching, but you forget, at a big company.
Yeah, I had a team of probably 100 people who were sketching. I could have sketched, but I just didn't have time because I was doing everything else.
Speaking of sketching, let's talk about the spring collection. Is there a theme or prevailing idea?
I think every season we take our key items and we look at everything and make, sure that everyone sort of gets the best outfit. Are there pieces in this collection that are going to wear season after season? Is the quality there? And then because it's fashion also, we have to add a little bit of fun. And I think this season it was color. Color was a big, big thing. I'm wearing something called Butter, which is a brand new yellow, which is pretty new for us. We haven't done yellow in a really long time. But
Wait, you really named it Butter?
We named it Butter.
Love it.
And on this occasion,
It does look like butter.
Yeah. There's a men's
Did you
butter.
wear that just for us?
Well, maybe. There's a men's cashmere sweater that's butter. There's women's cashmere sweater and a really great work jacket also.
We literally had the conversation this morning that someone said, I don't know if it's more Kerrygold or Land O'Lakes. Those were actual
Mickey
words that
said
were
margarine,
exchanged.
yeah.
We're Team Kerrygold here, so
that's right.
let's say Kerrygold. What's always on your mood board? I know some designers just have references that they adore and go back to time and time again.
Oh, gosh. I love looking at old furniture and interiors, the homes, like, some favorite homes. Homes of the rich and famous and the poor and creative, I love also. The color combos you'll find and sort of like the mix of materials, I find very inspiring. Pinterest has been amazing, obviously, but I had a conversation recently with a friend too, who had showed me a picture of a bracelet that he was looking at because he designs also. And I said, where'd you get that? And he was like, from a book. I'm like, a book? Wow. You can actually reference pictures from books. And I was like, radical. And so I have all these books at home that I rarely open. So I think that's going to be my new form of inspiration, because at the end of the day, there's so many common images that are just floating around on the internet. So it might be nice to just find an image that no one else has seen.
It was really fun when we were opening Rock Center and Sam was pulling inspiration tears for the store to see some of the tears that he pulled. And they were these really old specialty store, like Taylor images. And I think it gave a lot for me even of where his mind is in terms of the foundational elements of the brand, because it just created, again, like this experience and this familiarity, but also allure. There's so much of that.
How are creatives doing their mood boards these days? Are you Xeroxing things and
I love a good Xerox. I love a good photocopier. And when that thing goes down, we're in trouble. Yeah. We cover our foam core boards. We have pins. We just put them up. We take them down. We move them around. And then after each season, we just take them all down and we sort of file them away also. So we don't throw everything out, which is kind of nice to be able to look back.
Oh, that's cool to remember what you did a few seasons back.
A few seasons ago.
What was inspiring you? What about Pinterest or shared Instagram folders?
Pinterest, definitely. Shared Instagram folders might be a little too high tech for me personally, but Pinterest, yes.
Yeah. How far in advance do you work on a collection?
A year. I would say 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
even a little longer. I think a lot of your fabric development probably is like 15.
Yeah. We're working on 4 seasons at a time. Like right now, we just shot spring. We're going to shoot summer next. We're concepting summer and we're designing for spring next year. Yeah. It's everything all the time.
It's a lot to keep in your head.
Yeah. But it's fun. It's the fun part of it, I think. It's just how crazy everything is.
More food colors in our future?
A lot more food color always.
Good. Happy
especially
to hear
in
that.
Summer.
Social media has been key to Alex Mill's marketing strategy. Your accounts are very charming.
Yes.
Someone who looks at them a lot. And there's a lot of behind the scenes from Alex Mill HQ. Somsack, you have had to do everything from dance to model to sing. Has this come naturally to you?
Why, yes, it has actually.
Are you a theater kid?
Not really. I was a theater kid. I remember as a kid, maybe it's 7 or 8, I would do school plays. And I even went to an audition or 2 for community plays. But after being rejected too many times, I knew it was over.
They didn't see the brilliance.
They did not see look at me now, right? Yeah. It's been fun. We also joke too, every time we interview someone, we should also ask for a headshot and an audition of some sort, because you will be performing if you work with us.
We've definitely walked out of interviews and been like, oh, they could be good for social though.
Allie, how about you? I haven't seen that much of you yet.
I leave it to the experts,
Have you been enlisted?
Her debut is coming. Yeah,
I think on like my second day, Rose was like, oh, we have this great, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna wait on my social media moment. But yeah, I've been told there's more to come, so we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Collaborations have been very key to Alex Mill. Cherry Bombe did a fun pink work jacket collab in 2023. I love that jacket. Recent collab partners have included The Tonight Show's Jimmy Fallon and Becky Malinsky, who has the 5 Things You Should Buy Substack. Why are collabs such an important part of what you do?
Yeah, I think there's multiple, different reasons. One of them is just different audience, right? So the different collaborators might have different audience. There's a different spin that they can take. I think as a classics brand, we love the idea of someone coming in and saying, oh, what's your kind of take on Alex Mill? Even if it's just styling. So we've done things with Becky in the past where she's just styled our clothes. And then that kind of fed to this idea of, oh, wow, like there was such a great response to that. What would it be like if she came in and she worked with us and kind of put her handle on it, which is, again, a really fun thing to do when you're a brand as tight as we are, because you can. The P. Jimmy's thing is an incredible story. And Mickey has a long history of doing these kind of fun, quirky projects with him. And that came about a little bit naturally. We weren't in the pajama business. It lended itself well. So I think we think about people that we admire, people that are going to take a different approach to the product, people that are going to bring a new audience in for us. Awareness, you can't really get much bigger than a Jimmy Fallon. But then there's also the other side of it. That's someone like Becky, who's incredible at what she does and brings like this really engaged audience, much on a smaller scale than he is, but growing really quickly and kind of doing a really special thing out there.
Yeah, and I would say all our collabs, I'm pretty proud to say, is that most of them, or 99% of them, or maybe 100, but they're all very personal. You know, they're organic. Like we've had relationships with these people before we even asked to do a collab. They're either we've been fans of them or they've been fans of us, or we've interacted in some form before we even approach the idea of, oh, should we do something together? And I think that shows.
And it's fun to see a unique collab.
Yeah.
Because so many people do them with the same people and they just lose their specialness.
Yeah,
That's right.
There's so many collabs out there right now. And I think that's always been the key is how do we do something that feels a little different?
I wish that people could see sometimes some of the requests that come in and like how we fangirl in the office of like, even if it's a restaurant who wants to purchase our jackets, and we're like, let's just give them to them because we love this restaurant so much and we love the idea that they'd be wearing Alex Mill every day. It's really fun for us to get those kind of things like Somsack said. And it's nice to be able to be choosy and say, you know, we're only going to work with people that really inspire us.
Okay, we mentioned Becky Malinsky, who has 5 things you should buy on Substack. Speaking of Substack, Somsack, you have the most brilliantly named Substack. Tell us the name and why you were inspired to start a newsletter.
My Substack name is Somsack, which is sort of perfect, right?
Genius.
So this came up probably about a year ago. I think we were talking with Becky and she has one. And I was like, what is it? I didn't even know what a Substack was. I was like, where do you even go find this Substack? Is it an app? Is it a website? Rose, we were talking at the office and she was like, maybe you should do one because so often, I mean, I don't purport to be an expert of anything or not too many things, but I think there are some things I know and some things that the team asked me about, like, you know, where should I go get my clothes tailored or where do I get the best Thai food in New York? And they're like, why don't you just put something else where I'm sure people care or want to hear from you, which still shocks me.
Very humble. I think
Yes.
everyone comes to him and says, where should I eat? Where should I shop? Where should I visit? Where should I travel to? So, yeah, when you have people doing that every day, it's like, of course, there's an audience.
Yeah,
for it.
why don't I just get this up and going? And it's been really important to not sort of like put it onto a subscription because I just then feel the pressure to have to like churn out stuff. And that's the last thing I want to do is churn stuff out. This should be fun and it's been great. I mean, it probably should post a little bit more often, but it's been fun.
Who came up with the genius name?
Who did? Maybe it was me or maybe it was Rose. Maybe it was between the two of us. Someone did. There's a new sort of like series that we're doing called Insomnia too, which is where all the things I sort of scroll through in the middle of the night when I can't sleep. So Insomnia.
I was reading some of the Insomnia ones, but your most heartwarming post is about you as a young Parsons student in the mid-90s, hanging outside fashion shows and taking pictures of the models on disposable cameras.
Yes.
No less.
Yes.
Pre-iPhone. Tell us about 90s Somsack.
Oh gosh, I tear up every time I think about it. It's just like, it was such a, I think about all the pictures that, you know, I took as a kid. And in the 90s, unlike now, you really, if you wanted to find something or do something, you really had to love it and go find it and go do it and sort of like research it and put your whole heart into it. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Vogue.com and stuff. And I remember just getting all these pictures with my disposable camera and then dropping them off.
And remember, you could only take like 1 or 2 at a time.
One or 2
You only
at a
had,
time.
what, 24 on a roll?
Exactly.
Or
and then
12.
you drop them off at the CVS and then sometimes half the roll would come back and there'd be a finger in front of everything and it'd be the worst. And so in hindsight, as I was writing everything, I was just like, oh gosh, imagine like if I told this little kid who was staying outside of the tents that these pictures would somehow end up on Vogue.com. He would never believe it, you know, and I still don't believe it. It's just, it's such a personal sort of post, which I think is probably one of my most favorites. And I think the people reading it, also I got some really great reactions to that post.
And the pictures are so charming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember seeing those photos when we worked together at J. Crew. I don't know if they were pinned up on a board. I'm sure they were to some degree. But what's, you know, incredible, and I wish I knew I'm so happy to know the Som now. I wish I knew the 90s Som. His creativity and the staying power that those photos have. 30 years later, they're still so interesting and relevant and conversation starting. And even the models that he was able to capture. It just, the effort to go into it. So it's really, the whole thing is amazing.
Yeah, this past weekend, it had been sitting in like a shoebox or a bunch of shoeboxes under my bed. And so this weekend, I finally got a photo album. Remember those? And I was just putting them all into sleeves this weekend.
You knew all the models' names, so they were
Yes.
happy to stop and
Yes.
pose for you.
Yeah,
I also read you went to high school with supermodel Shalom Harlow.
I did. Yeah. I mean, she was a year ahead of us. And I remember one day she was at school and then one day she wasn't. She just like disappeared. And then she came back maybe like a year later, having traveled the world and being a supermodel. I was like,
Did you
"Good
see her
for
in the
you."
halls and think, she should be a
Of
supermodel?
course. Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would go into like the library and find the old yearbooks and find her picture and photocopy them.
You were born in Thailand
Yes.
and brought to Canada as a young
Yes.
child. We've had several guests on the show who are immigrants or the children of immigrants who have said that their parents discouraged them from pursuing a creative path. Was it different for you?
It was the same. I think they didn't know any better. I think there were probably 3 careers that they thought we should go into, not because they wanted us to be wealthy or anything, but I think they just worried about our sort of well-being. And they knew that if you were either a doctor, a lawyer, or maybe an architect,
Accountant.
accountant, yeah, you would be taken care of, or you'd be able to take care of them too. So that being said, yeah, they wanted me to be a doctor. I said I would be an architect. So when I came to Parsons, I was coming for architecture, quote unquote.
Oh, that's what you told your parents?
Yes. And so when I got there,
He exaggerated.
yeah, I exaggerate. I simplified and I exaggerated. After the first year, I definitely switched to fashion.
Now,
That's
your
history.
grandmother was a seamstress.
Yes.
Was she an inspiration?
100%. She was a seamstress. I would watch her sew. The ladies in town would come to her apartment or to her house, and she would make traditional Thai costumes for weddings and banquets and stuff. And so I would help her, whether it be grabbing the pincushion or just ironing things for her. Yeah, I would watch her. And my mom, too, to a certain extent, when it was our birthdays, she would take us to like Joann's Fabrics. Pick a fabric, we'll make you a shirt or something. Yeah.
When did you
Yeah.
know you wanted to be a designer?
I knew I wanted to do something creative in fashion. I guess I didn't know that a designer was actually a possible career. Probably in 4th grade in the back of like our art class, just flipping through old Vogue magazines. I remember seeing all the names of like, whether it be Isaac or Marc Jacobs or Donna Karan, all the designers that I loved, and the name Parsons was always associated with each one. And I was like, I guess that's where I gotta go, Mecca, I think it's Parsons. And so I think that probably started it all.
It's so amazing
Yeah.
what you see when you're younger and how that inspires you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know. So I think it's always important to sort of keep your eyes open all the time.
I heard you tell this story, or maybe I read it somewhere, but I thought this could be a future collaboration for you. You talked about when you came to Canada,
Yeah.
you were given some hand-me-downs, and
Yes.
one of them was a Sesame Street t-shirt. Can you tell
Yes.
the story about that shirt?
It was a T-shirt because we were sponsored by our local church and we were refugees also. We arrived in April. I don't think I had pants on because I either got them wet on the plane or whatever, but it was April and it was freezing. And so the family that sponsored us gave us clothes, and one of them was this really cool sort of Sesame Street T-shirt with Big Bird on a seesaw. And I just remember that really resonating with me. I was like, maybe like that's my love of graphic tees to this day. And the crazy story is I still have that T-shirt to this day, and it's in my bedroom, and I just look at it sometimes. I'm just like, wow, how far have you come? This is so crazy.
Can you do a
Yeah.
Somsack on the t-shirt?
I think that might be the next one. Yeah.
When I heard that story, I was like, oh, they should do a Sesame Street collab.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I
Wouldn't
was
that be
just
funny?
thinking. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
I did not know your family, that they were refugees.
Yes.
You must have a lot of empathy for what people are going through right now, and
It's
that
just
sort of
crazy.
attack on immigrants right now.
I just know that my life would be so different had I not been sponsored or had I not started our lives in Canada. And I just think back to my parents. They were like 20 years old with 2 kids in this land that no one spoke their language. They didn't even have a grocery store that made the food or offered the food that they had. And so props to them, and, just to sort of like move here and start a life.
All right, Allie, your turn. You're a bit of a sphinx, but I did find one fun story about you. When you graduated from the College of the Holy Cross, where you got a degree in sociology and women and gender studies. Well done, you.
Thank
We
you.
like that. You interviewed at J. Crew for a job. Mickey was CEO of J. Crew at the time. He handed you a piece of paper and said, write down why we should hire you. I heard you tell the story in an interview,
Yeah.
but you didn't tell us what you wrote down.
I did it?
No,
Oh,
or maybe
okay.
they cut it from
Yeah.
the interview.
Oh, that's so funny. So, yeah, I mean, a little backstory. I loved sociology because I love the study of people. And I didn't even realize merchandising, was a career. I knew things arrived in stores, but I didn't really understand it. I had internships in finance. I thought
They
that's
just unpack themselves.
I mean, now it's like, hello, but I guess, my 19, 20-year-old self, I didn't appreciate it. Holy Cross is in Worcester, Massachusetts, not exactly the fashion capital of the world, but my sister was visiting and was in my house, and I had all these, Pinterest before Pinterest, I had all these magazine tears, and that's when you were still doing catalog shopping, and they were all pinned up, and, it was kind of like what I was hoping for, wanting, inspired by whatever. She kind of said to me, you should think about going to retail. She had a very dear friend who was in that business, so kind of gave me that foot in the door. And I remember thinking, because I had actually was coming for finance interviews, and I came in rounds of interviews. I think I met with one woman in all these rounds, and I was a little defeated in that process. And even still, I remember thinking, okay, well, here I'm going to go to another company that's run by a man. And that was at J. Crew with Mickey. Read a lot about him, and I knew a little bit about his leadership team, though most of them included women predominantly. But from the moment I walked in there, the energy in that building, it was 2005, so a lot of the team had been there for about a year and a half, 2 years. They were really starting to turn the business around, and it was electric. I mean, like seismic. You could feel it reverberating around the walls. I was hooked, and I remember just thinking, God, I want this job so badly. I don't even really 100% know what I'm going to be doing, but I want to work here. I met that day with the 5 women who interviewed me are now either chief product officers, CEOs themselves. So it was Liz Binder, who's currently the CPO of Lululemon. It was Tracy Gardner, who, became the president of J. Crew and now serves on, several boards and is incredible. Trish Donnelly, Jen Foyle. It was just like this unbelievable. I was captivated by these women that I was meeting with. And then they said, you're going to meet with Mickey now. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to go in. And I actually had to text my dad to ask him a question about getting someone's phone number. And my dad made me so nervous. He's like, this is such a big deal. You're meeting with Mickey Drexler. So I remember I was so nervous going in, sitting there. And Mickey I can still remember that interview. He is exactly who he was 20 years ago. It'll be actually 20 years. I started on June 6th, 2005. And so it'll be 20 years of working with him this June. But we were in there, and there was Mickey had this, it wasn't a big office, I wouldn't call that. It was just a big room. He had a big table that sat in the room, and there was tons of hubbub in that room. People came in, came out. He was paging people. He had a loudspeaker. And I was kind of like...
Wait, let that sink in for a second. There was an intercom system.
There was an intercom system. Mm-hmm. At the time I was there, I think we only had 2 floors. We wanted to expand to 4 floors, but he would page you. Or you could dial him, 8001. You could get right to him. He would page people when he had a question. And it could be like, where should I eat? Where should we open a new store? He's so curious. Anyway, I was kind of like, I don't even know how this is going because there's so much going on. He was asking me questions, and we were having a really good back and forth. But again, I couldn't get a gauge. And then he handed me a piece of paper. He had his feet on the desk, which he often, again, does still to this day. And he said, write down why I should hire you. I'm so nervous, thanks in part to my father, who had kind of made me feel like on edge. But I just thought if I was someone who was established as him and I was hiring someone who's so green like me, what would I want them to tell me? And so I wrote, I will make a difference here. I gave him back the piece of paper, and he looked at it, and he kind of smiled, and he slapped his hand on the table, and he said, you're hired. And that was it. I was there for the one day of rounds of interviews. And I remember it was such a whim that I was even kind of there. I had no idea that I was going to go and meet with someone from HR. It's set me off in this incredible, journey, 13 years at J. Crew, and then I was at the Gap for 5 years, and now being with the team here. So it's just been really fun to be with him from the very beginning and back with him in this role now.
What a beautiful answer.
Yeah, thanks.
That you gave him. I have goosebumps.
Yeah, it's a great answer.
You came up with that right on the spot, right off the top of
your head. And then maybe I'll give my dad, who's incredible, a lot of credit. I think I probably, had he not said to me, wow, this is a really big deal, I probably would have given an answer like, that was a little bit more what I thought I should write instead of, what was in my heart. Kudos, again, Mickey has always supported women in this huge way, and that was part of the reason. But the women that I met with that day, even 20 years ago, they were so inspirational. Even talking to them, you could just tell they were motivated. They were so excited. If I hadn't even met with them all day, I don't think I would have written that, because it just made me feel like, okay, what are these women doing? They're just trying their hardest to drive this business, to motivate their teams, to breed excitement at the customer level. And clearly, I was hooked then, and I'm as hooked, now as I was then.
Oh, that's an amazing story. Are you too good at trusting your gut?
As a merchant, you have to trust your gut. Yeah.
If you work with Mickey also.
Yeah, that's right. it has to be, you have to, he sometimes will say, if I think it, it is. You have to really have that courage of conviction and say, this is what the customer is going to love. And you have to feel that yourself, I think. And if you don't, then it's not going to execute, that way.
You nodded immediately. But were you always good at that when you started?
I mean, I wouldn't have maybe called it that, but you sort of knew. I think the minute you see something inside, whether you like it or don't like it, or whether it's good or bad, or
I guess you also don't become a designer if you don't have a strong point of view.
Yeah. It's also helpful in sort of editing out the noise and the garbage almost, because you could be open to everything and then that's never good. Then there's no point of view if you love everything. You can't love everything.
Last question before we do the speed round. Do you two have a motto or a mantra that gets you through the day?
One of them was run, don't walk. And we talked about that a little bit. That's a big kind of work ethos. Mickey's been saying that for 20 years. Run, don't walk. Like, how quickly can you do something? Don't iterate it and beat it to death talking about it. Just kind of do it. Another one that I think gets me by at work in the hectic days is like Finding Nemo, just keep swimming. I mean, sometimes you have to kind of just keep going. There's a lot of noise. And if we lose sight of all the distractions, the noise and the ideas and the excitement and the emotion, then we're not going to get anywhere. And then the third, and this is one I think we try to keep at work and then also bleeds more into my personal life, is simplify and really try to keep things simple. And I think we find in the office, if we're talking ourselves into circles, it's like, wait, just stop. We've gone too far. Just like keep it simple. If it's harder for us to come up with the idea, the customer is never going to understand it. And we don't want to give them something where they're choosing not to buy it for a certain reason, right? So just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. And yeah, so simplify is probably the biggest one, but I cannot think about Mickey and not hear run, don't walk in my head.
How about
all the
you?
time. Yeah, I think whether it's not overthinking it or maybe even just every day is a new day. It's just like every day you wake up, it's a clean palette. Everything, sometimes you can get down on yourself, admired in sort of like the mistakes, and then you start overthinking stuff. But you know what? It's not the end of the world, especially having gotten to where I have and then thinking back to when I used to think it was the end of the world. It really is not the end of the world.
You are known for your tattoo collection. Do you have any mottos tattooed on yourself?
I don't have a lot of words, but the one I do have is a line from Neil Young's song, There Is a Town in North Ontario. And that's sort of like a nod to my Canadian roots. Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
All right, speed round. What beverage do you start the day with?
I have a green tea every morning.
Black coffee.
Favorite cookbook? Do you two cook?
I love to cook.
You do?
I absolutely love to cook. My favorite cookbook, and he's a friend, so I will give him the shout out too, is Let's Eat by Dan Pelosi. I don't know if you know Dan.
Rosie Pelosi.
I love
him.
I love him. My kids love all of his. I love all of his food, but my kids love all of his food. I really cook for my family. I have 3 kids, and so I spend most of my weekend cooking with them for the week, kind of meal prepping stuff for the week.
I don't really cook from cookbooks. I sort of like more on the fly kind of guy, and I don't even cook that often, but I just got a cookbook from my sister this year. It was Ruth Rogers' cookbook. It's just like that kind of food I just love. I actually
River
Googled.
Cafe?
Yeah, I think it was like her prosciutto radicchio pasta. It was like 4 ingredients, and that was it. That is my kind of recipe. Simple, simple, simple.
What are you streaming right now?
I'm watching The Bear, which is so convenient for this podcast. My husband and I were behind on watching it, and so we just started the 3rd season.
Streaming, does Jeopardy count as streaming? Like DVRing Jeopardy? That's probably
Maybe.
what I have. Yeah,
Does that help you relax?
100%.
Yeah.
I love
Just
that,
zone
Sam.
out.
I did not. That's my mom's favorite show, too.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like the Tournament of Champions is like, I love.
Do you know all the answers?
I used to be a trivia buff as a kid. I don't know all the answers. I probably
Do you have all the answers, Somsack?
all the time.
They're well.
Oracle.
I am
yes.
thinking, though, that we need to do an Alex Mill trivia competition.
Oh,
That would be fun.
funny.
Yeah.
Like Trivial
teams.
Pursuit and stuff.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
All these new social media franchises for you guys. You said Alex Meal.
More things,
that's
yes,
right.
to do
Yeah.
and
Alex
perform.
Mill trivia. Favorite snack food?
Doritos comes to mind for me. I think
Really?
I don't let myself have it all the time, but I love Doritos.
Cake, any kind of cake, just cake.
Okay, we're going to skip ahead to the final question. If you had to be trapped on a desert island with one food celebrity, who would it be and why?
I mean, I would happily be trapped with Dan, but Ina Garten, if you could put me anywhere with Ina Garten, Island, this jewel box of the recording studio, I would be more than delighted.
Why Ina?
To me, I think she was the first, and maybe it was because of the accessibility on the Food Network, but she was the first person who really made me think about cooking from the heart, not having it be formal or fussy. And I adore that about her. And I think, she visited the J. Crew offices when we were there. She seemed so authentic, true to herself. And so she's an idol. Yeah.
Sam, how about you?
Maybe Julia Child. I think old school. On top of everything that she'd cook, all the Soul Moon years and stuff, just like all the stories that she'd probably have growing up when she did and doing what she did.
All right. Well, you two are amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm thrilled to have you as neighbors.
So much fun.
Yeah, we're so excited.
Alex Mill puts a lot of fun and positivity and color out into the world. And as one of your fans, I appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you.
That's it for today's show. I would love for you to subscribe to Radio Cherry Bombe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave a rating and a review. Anyone you want to hear on an upcoming episode? Let me know. Our theme song is by the band Tra La La. Joseph Hazen is the studio engineer for Newsstand Studios. Our producers are Catherine Baker and Jenna Sadu, and our editorial coordinator is Sophie Kais. Thanks for listening, everybody. You're the bomb.